I worked at an art glass store that sold glass. Mostly made in China with very few actual nice pieces. We were told to peel the made in China stickers off. If anyone asked where the glass came from, we would say New Jersey, which is where the supplier was from. I always felt like Danny DeVito in Matilda changing the odometer on his used cars. Upvoting for the Matilda reference. About a month ago I was in Chili's eating dinner and my waitress comes up to me and says, "Have you ever seen Matilda? You'd really like it." Then turned to my boyfriend and told him, "Make sure you take that girl home and watch Matilda." And then she walked away. I worked at McDonald's and they taught me how to pinch the fry carton just right while putting the fries into them so that it looked full, but actually wasn't. I only had one customer call me out on it. He shook the fries out into his bag and poured them back into the fry carton himself and it only filled up halfway. So I had to give him more fries. I was impressed and embarrassed. It's been 7 years and I can still see his face. I ducking hated that practice and basically refused to do it. Never got fired. But managed to have a few customers ask me when my shifts were the next week so they could have me filling their fries. The fries were dirt cheap too. Case held 6 bags. Each bag made 8 or 12 baskets. And each basket made 5 large fries filled my way. They only cost $20 a case. So if they just filled them like I would, they would net $288 with all conservative numbers. 8, 4, $1.50, and assuming they were all sold in meals. This is coming from management's side because I was shipping manager, so I had to know all this hit. I find it hilarious that someone would plan their week around when the fry guy at McDonald's works so that they don't get ripped off on their fry order. I work at a movie theater. People are always trying to sneak food in. In our employee handbooks it actually says people can bring food in as long as it doesn't smell bad. It's funny to see customers nervously hide their bags so we don't see it. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I work at a Goodrich quality theater. I think all theaters will let you bring food in because it's in the handbook, but the dog thing is probably just ours. The reason my manager lets dogs in is because there's a homeless man that lives by the theater. He has a dog named Lucky and she is really well trained. Since she lets them in, she lets other dogs in. But only if they're quiet and don't disturb the movie. Edit 2. I've only seen like 4 other dogs than the homeless man's dog. I think they were mostly service dogs. And one lady had her chihuahua in her purse. They haven't given us a reason to not allow it yet and nobody has complained. So if you show up at a GQT in the Midwest, please don't complain about dogs. I speak for all employees at my theater. We like to pet them. Would you give a hit even if it was not allowed? Probably not. My manager lets people bring their dogs in, so she has no hits to give. Restaurant that we would reheat sauces for several days, and depending on how many times this had happened they would look and taste completely different. I told my friends and family to not eat there as there was plenty of sketchy hit going on there. I work at a shoe store. And we recently got a shipment of clearance sandals, like a year's old sandals they had shoved in some warehouse. As I was putting them out I noticed some had green stuff all over them, mold. We were instructed by corporate to wipe it off and sell them anyway. Luckily my manager is sane and refuses to put out the moldy shoes. But still some sketchy hit. That's disgusting. At one of my jobs, 2 times I found enormous dead beetles stuck in the box of stock as soon as I opened it. My DM told me to damage and dispose every item in those boxes. At my other job, I found dead termites and a bunch of sawdust in a set of wooden jewelry boxes after opening them from shipment. And once again was told to dispose of them and wash the hell out of my hands. We don't have termites where I live that I've heard of. Anyway, nor do we have giant beetles. It's not the termites you've got to worry about. It's the flesh-eating burrowing worms that live on them that should be your concern. Worked for a shady computer repair company that took in electronic recycling. He would charge $1 an inch to dispose of old court monitors and then toss them into the dumpster. This was just one of the many shady things he did. Edit. A lot of people are saying they'll just toss their stuff in the trash. Please don't. There are legit places out there that will dispose of electronics responsibly. Look for companies that are R2 certified. SAT. There are tons of retro gamers always on the lookout for good CRTs. Have you tried Craigslist or driving around any neighborhood on trash night? Trashmen won't take them here, but people always leave them at their curbs anyway. I could probably find 10 on a weekly basis with my eyes closed. Worked at a bike rent shop where we told customers we sanitized the helmets we rented via heat treatment. Heat treatment consisted of having some sorry as high schooler run up to the top of the building, essentially the attic of this old wooden structure, and just leave them in boxes, or, if they were wet, hung from nails to drip and dry. I gagged just thinking about that. Imagine the smell. You haven't thought of the smell. You itch. I've worked for 2 separate escape rooms. Everyone who didn't get out got really close. Usually we'll show you what you missed if there's only a few puzzles left. If we don't show you anything, it's because we didn't want to make you feel bad. I never want to go because I suck at puzzles. I would probably wait for the other people to solve the stuff for me. You never know. You might surprise yourself and find one that you're inherently good at. You're also not totally alone, as there's always someone monitoring your progress to help if/when you need it. If you're still not sure, every team needs someone to find all the pieces. I hope you give them a try. The cup of soup and bowl of soup were the exact same size. People would pay more for a bowl and just get a cup of soup in a bowl that was shorter and wider at the bottom than the cup. Yep. The same thing at the cafe I work at, except it's the adults and children's size milkshakes. I feel like I would notice if I got an adult and a child's milkshake and they were the same size. I was a server at my first restaurant a few years ago. You got hit for calling in sick, even if you were legit sick. If you were sick, they would tell you to go to the bathroom and do what's needed, but get back to work ASAP. If you went to the bathroom too often, sneezed, coughed, or did anything sick people do in front of customers, you got scolded. Everyone ducking hated that manager. I tried calling in one time because I was struggling to survive. I was puking and hitting every 30 minutes. They were so pissed off because no one could cover my shift and said if I went home I would regret it. When I started work, I looked and felt like death. The first table I went to was a party. This lady said, "You don't look good. You need to go home." And when I responded with "I'm okay, no one can cover my shift and I need this job," she got up and told me to follow her. As we were walking, she asked why I felt like I was going to get in trouble. She flipped her hit when I told her and walked straight to the manager like she was on a ducking mission and said, "I'm a director of human resources at Herpaderp. I can't believe you would let him work like this," and then threatened him when he wanted to go home sick. "I'm going to contact corporate tomorrow for treating your staff in such an inhumane way and for putting your customers' health at risk." When he tried to respond, he was bombarded so hard by this red hot ball of fiery Bostonian rage. I started having Vietnam flashbacks. It was so ducking brutal. I actually felt bad for him. She told me to go home immediately. She even offered to buy me an Uber home and promised me there would be no repercussions in any way, shape or form. I'm 6'0" and at the time was pretty big. But I was honestly so terrified of this 5' nothing woman. I said yes ma'am and walked right out the door without clocking out. This was in front of staff and customers. The silence was palpable and I was in the limelight. I could feel the eyes staring me down as I walked away, nearly hitting my pants from fear and my stomach hurting. I showed up to work a few days later and felt like a ducking rock star because my co-workers had the biggest hit-eating grins on their faces, giving me a thumbs up. As I was walking to the back to clock in, I was stopped by this professional as duck lady in a nice woman suit. She sat me down and explained that she was from ours. Basically, I was told to never fear for my employment if I needed to call in sick again and to take one more paid day off to fully recover. I was like, "Duck, yeah." While I was walking out, a co-worker stopped me and said, "Dude, Duckface hasn't been back to work since that night you went home. I'm pretty sure he got fired." I didn't see him again until recently when he was my server at a diner I was eating at. The look on his face was priceless. He went from being a manager at a very successful, high-end pub to being my server at the equivalent to a Denny's. This wasn't the story you guys were looking for, but it's one of my favorite stories. Had a job on a sales floor like this. The manager and owner would make you feel like hit for calling out sick. Would tell you to get better. Would bombard you with texts/emails telling you to get your ass back to work, etc. I now work at a place that pays way better, and when I was afflicted with serious food poisoning last week, I was able to take the 4 days off that I needed to recover. Paid. I love my current job. Stories like this are so weird to me as an Australian. I'm not trying to get on the lol America train at all. Countries are what they are. It's just such a foreign concept. Not having sick leave. I used to work in a jewelry shop that sold cheap Chinese hit silver/gold painted plastic jewelry. None of it being real metal. But every sale I had to upsell one of these $5 polishing cloths. You can't polish a turd. The only thing this cloth did was rub the cheap paint off the plastic faster. I felt like such a con artist. You can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter and make it sparkle. The Mythbusters actually proved that you can polish a turd.